welcome to the three of you, and we are happy that you're here to join another episode of KALAI Samvad. And we witnessed a great concert this afternoon, and it was a pleasure for the ears and for the mind to have such beautiful melodies played with all the three instruments that you played. So normally the interviews or a conversation would start with how did you get into the field of music, but I would like to start it from today because that's the most fresh memory in the mind. So I would like to ask all three of you, first of all, to give a brief introduction about yourselves, and then we will take the interview forward. So over to you.
Sure. So my name is Patrick Vedlog, as you know. And I play the bansuri. Been playing for about 10 years. And I come from Oslo, so been dwelling in the communities around in Oslo and around in the musical traditions and meeting people around there to actually get a hold of this music. And and meeting such great musicians. Yeah, absolutely. Just enhances everything. So it just started from a little flute, and then now we're here.
So,
my name is Gabriel, and I started tabla at the age of 7 in Dharamshala, Himachal Pradesh, at boarding school. I was introduced to tabla. I'm very lucky to start at an early age, and then I had some years with some not so much practice and some breaks, and then later took it up more seriously and have really enjoyed going forward.
So you've grown up with tabla training almost, you could say.
Yes.
It's great.
Yeah, my name is Moa Danielson. I'm from Stockholm, Sweden, and I play the Santoor. I reached the Santoor in kind of strange ways. My father was a musician, so I grew up with music in my home, and then I played the Western classical piano since I was a small child. But when I was about 20, I discovered the tabla. I was traveling in India and started learning tabla, and then a few years later, I switched to Santoor. So, yeah.
That's great to know that you've had so many years of experience altogether. So, like I mentioned, that I would like to discuss a little bit about the concert that we had this afternoon, and I would like to ask each one of you actually, how do you actually feel when you're playing each of your instruments, and when the experience that you have when you play the instrument and with a given set of audience, what are the feelings that are going through your mind, and how do you what is your experience?
So for me, like it takes, of course, time to get used to being on stage and to feel free in your music. So we spend a lot of time at home sitting by ourselves playing for hours, and then once you get the time to go on stage, then you actually get to this meeting, or you're facing yourself in a kind of a special way. And so when I play flute, there was a time where I, of course, had this period where I was very insecure about my music, and how after every concert I was like, I did something wrong, I did that wrong, I did this, I could do this better. Mm-hmm. But after time, you sort of, those thoughts become less important. Yeah. And it's a practice to be on stage and to feel free when you're playing your music. Mm-hmm. So often when especially in the alap section, I tend to close my eyes, because it's for me, Indian classical music, and especially bansuri, for me, it's a very inward journey. Mm-hmm. So to really go to the full depth of that side, then to really immerse yourself within yourself, And especially when you meet other musicians, then you see the different kind of inwardness or their journey.
Yeah.
So it's been very interesting with this concert and this project that we meet each other in a very or in a very special arena, you could say. So for me, it's a very freeing experience to be able to be you, kind of. Yeah.
But they also say that the Indian classical music is also about a very soulful experience, and it's very meditative in nature. So
Absolutely.
that it really shows when you speak about that, because you're actually going through that experience.
Oh yes, I would say that, like, for me, music is yoga. It's a union between yourself and yourself, kind of. So and it's through the medium of music that you find yourself. So it's it's an exploration of who you are and your surrounding and your fellow humans and nature. Yeah.
What would you say, Gabriel?
I have a similar experience when you start to go on stage. Then you feel nervous in the beginning, and then slowly when the concert starts going, then you feel more light.
Yeah.
So in the beginning the hands get stuck and everything, and then later you get warmed up.
Yeah.
But of course then when you practice more and more and going on stage, you get that less. So it's very good, like experience to have, to go on stage and perform. And then you learn a lot. When you're on stage, you're always observing what are people's reactions, and that way you learn also what people find interesting. Or
I think it was also very evident from the concert today, where you guys were playing, and then suddenly the audiences start clapping, and then you know that you have a good connect with the audience. So how about you, Moa?
Well, I would say it's very different. I would say it's not always, it can be so different. Sometimes it's like, because it's not only you yourself sitting playing, it's everything in the room. It's the audience, it's the organizers, and it's the fellow musicians. So it can be, maybe in one concert you have an argument with a fellow musician, then you're not in a meditating state. And sometimes there was no coffee when we came, and then so I mean it's not always like this. It can, because there are so many kinds of concerts, so many kinds of audiences, so many kinds of occasions. So but sometimes it happens that it's really like you, and also it's the room and the sound. If you can hear yourself, if the Santoor is in tune or not. What you have to do is to try to, when you really start playing, is of course you have to try to let all these things go and just be there, and just be in the music and in the very moment. So, and that gives me a lot of energy. Actually, I was never nervous, not even when I was a child, to go on stage, because I did it with the piano, and when I was a small child, and every time I felt this excitement going on stage. So I think I had a good teacher from the beginning, who presented the concept of being on stage as a very positive experience. So I always had this big energy, like adrenaline.
And to some, it also comes very naturally that you are there and you're talking to people, and it's nothing different from, just like you and me sitting together and talking. So
Yes, and all the energy from the audience gives me energy to an inspiration to play. That is not there if you sit rehearsing. So it's
Yeah. So just picking up on the point that you mentioned about different types of concerts and different types of audience, have you, I'll come back to each one of you, but have you played in India, and do you feel the difference between the audience in India, because the music actually, starts from it is an Indian originated music. So do you feel the difference in the audience?
Me, yes. Yes, I played there a lot, and it's also different, of course, different types of concerts. Even in India, there are so many different type of occasions where you play. But generally in India, people are very astonished that a Western person play the Indian music, of course. So it's very much like, how come? And so that you play this, and it's like they are really surprised and happy often about it. In playing in Europe, especially from Swedish audience, there is more skepticism, because maybe they think that, also because they don't know about the music, and then they cannot judge if you can play or not. So then they imagine, because I'm not Indian, then probably not. So I feel more skepticism from Swedish audience and Western audience, because they want a real Indian sometimes. Than from an Indian audiences, often they have more knowledge about the music, so they can judge. And yeah.
What about you two? Has any one of you played in India?
Yes, I have played, and I think it's different because usually the audience in India, they have seen a classical, and oftentimes they also have some knowledge about classical. So it might not be very new for them. So it's not like mind-blowing when they come for a concert. But you can get that probably more often in the West, because there's people who've never seen, and they're like, wow, this is amazing. And so those experiences might be a bit more rare in India compared to...
It's also very evident in the concerts. When you have the audience sitting right in front of you, then it's more obvious how they feel. And yes, and then just continuing on this topic about concerts, collaboration between different artists, is it challenging, or is it creatively stimulating for you guys? And how have you experienced this with the collaboration? So if I could just start with you.
Well, a meeting between two people is always interesting, but it's also always a challenge as well, because we have all different perspective on what is right, what is not right, what is doable, what is non-doable. So it's always an interesting meeting, I would say, when you meet through music, because as it's known, music is like this universal language where nothing really is wrong, nothing really is bad or good, but it's music. And when you meet through music, you meet through different genres, different expressions, different modes, different, like for example, with Santoor and Bansuri, it's quite two different instruments, but they complement each other in very unique way, I would say, with the sort of low, mellow tones of the Bansuri and like smooth flowing with the very, what you could say, the elegance of the stringed sound from the Santoor.
The intricate sounds of each string playing at
Indeed,
the time.
and how they complement each other. So when we have had now a couple of days where we have practiced together, and me and Moa we have known each other for a couple of years, but we've never played together. So I feel like just because of these couple of days now, I've gotten to know Moa even more than the 2 years that we have known each other. And the same goes with Gabriel. I didn't meet him until a couple of days ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had our first concert on Thursday, 2 days ago. So this this meeting is a very unique form to get to know people.
Yeah.
And I try, like, of course, you have your bias, so you have things which you are like skeptical about, but you also have to have that openness to meet in the middle. And I would say it's very interesting when we have been meeting now, because I come with flute compositions, which are specified and made and played on flute, but then Moa has to translate it into Santoor,
yeah.
and vice versa.
Yeah.
So her composition in Santoor I have to try to make sound good in Bansuri. So it's a very give and take sort of process. So you have to balance it quite good.
Yeah. And what's your take on that?
So with any artist that you meet, you have to figure out what is their personality, or what do they like, the way you contribute to their playing, like as a tabla player, how you play the teka or whatever. Then you need to like figure out that specific artist's personality and what do they like. So that comes like also with sitting with them for a while. So when you're with a new artist, sometimes the chemistry is there, then it flows, and sometimes you need some time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's nice that you say that, because sometimes it's just that your first impression of someone could be different, but as in when you get to know them, it changes, and then you also get along in a better way when you have that understanding and you spend the time with each other. Moa, what are your thoughts about?
Yeah, it's really, it can be so different, that also collaborating with other artists. I really love that, to do it, but it can be so bad and it can be really great. So it's really interesting, both what kind of musicians you are, if you are in the same genre. Now we are about in the same genre, we all play the Hindustani music, and if you collaborate with musicians in other genres, like other Indian styles, or totally other genres, or then it's even more challenging. It can be, but it doesn't have to be, because it's also up to personality. And I agree exactly like both of you said. It's like when you play together, it's like you can come somehow you can trespass all the surface that you have, the mask and everything, and when you're on stage, more than when you rehearse, I think it's more that you're still the persons, and you keep your positions maybe, but when you're on stage, you can't do that anymore. Suddenly you are there together, you are like in the boat, and you are one organism, kind of.
Exactly.
You have to become one organism. So then suddenly you are not three people like with different positions, but you are just three sides of one organism. That is actually the music that you are making, and that's a very special experience and a beautiful experience.
I think that, again, that was something also that we could clearly notice in the afternoon when you guys played together. Like I also mentioned there, that these subtle gestures and these the body language that you had towards each other, and the smiles once in a while when you hit the right chord. I think it's very evident that you guys work very well together, and it's a great thing that since you haven't spent so much time with each other playing together, but still have that coordination. I think that's a great. It's a great teamwork already now.
And I must add that it's actually the Indian classical music. It's like the ultimate music to do this. Actually, that is maybe the core of why I love it so much. Because in many other types of music, also of course this communication is there, and you have to be like one and work together. But still, it's maybe more composed things and more divided roles. One is the bass, one is the drums, one have one do the chords, one do the melody, and many fixed things. But with the Indian classical music, it's really like
You have
you
to come
take
together.
turns. Everybody is the solo player and everybody is the accompanist. Sometimes you
Yes.
just really have to do this really, you have to have
Switch between the roles.
yes,
to
this
take turns,
communication to rise, to go back, to give room, to take room,
Yeah.
and to listen and to follow that and to take a new initiative and make the others follow you, and that you really have to. This is changing all the time, and this is actually what I love the most with the Indian music, because all these possibilities are inside.
And I would add also that it's this continuous evaluation that, like you mentioned earlier, like when we're on stage, you're in this moment, and it's now
Yeah.
that it happens.
It's for real.
Yeah. And that's this balancing act that you always have to have yourself, as you mentioned, like you are the solo player, but you're also the accompanist, and you turn this back and forth, and the dynamic is very important to, as a strength for musicians, to be able to, as I also mentioned, to give and take.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you have to give spotlight, sometimes you have to take, and that is the respect,
Yes.
I think, which is underlying here, that we respect each other as individuals, but also we are a team, that we are doing this together.
More, if I could just continue on this thread for regarding today's concert, you mentioned something about the Nordic Sangeet project. Could you put a few more words about the project?
Actually, I'm also the one of the leaders of the Stockholm Sangeet, as you know. That is the organization concerts and a big festival in Stockholm, and also, but not only concerts and festival, but also different projects to support Asian music and dance. So the Nordic Sangeet project, it is actually it started many years ago. Scale we had the of because we realized that in the Nordic countries, many musicians within South Asian on high level and like playing professionally, but many of the musicians didn't know about each other. And also there are organizers in all these countries, but also many of them didn't know each other. They were all working like, and especially for the artist, it could be like, okay, in Finland there was a singer but no tabla player, and then in Norway there was a tabla player but no santoor player, and so, and of course musicians each other and organizers. So there was so much to win from making a network. So that's the idea of the Nordic Sangeet. We wanted to create a network of artists within this music, and also a network of organizers, so everybody would benefit. So this concert was one small part of this bigger project.
That's very nice, and we wish you luck that you have many more of such concerts and a bigger network of the musicians that can come together. Now I will take a step back and switch to how the usual interviews should start. So I'd like each one of you to give us some highlights about your musical journey, and ups and downs, and briefly touching upon how it all started, or for you.
Yeah. So I would say the great pivotal moment in my musical career was when my brother, he showed me a YouTube concert of Ustad Zakir Hussain and Rakesh Chaurasiaji playing. Prior to this, during childhood, I've been playing in a marching band with the drums and a drum set and everything. So I have a background in percussion from that. After some time when I was teenager, I played in a band and a little different things like that. But then I got very interested into science, and I dropped music for a while. But then I got a very big fascination for science and language. Language took me to the East, and Chinese and Hindi and that sort of thing, Sanskrit. But in Chinese, I was also or in China, I was very fascinated by their music. So there was a special type of flute which caused my interest. So I bought a flute from Amazon, just a cheap flute, just to try. But then, after a couple of weeks, my brother showed me this video of Zakir Hussain and Rakesh Rasya, and I was just mesmerized by the performance. So I immediately wanted to learn. It was also beautiful, but I didn't understand anything. So I just have to investigate. So luckily at that time, me and my brother was living with each other. So he got the fascination for tabla, I got the fascination for flute, and then by that I learned the raga and he learned the tala. There was no big tabla teacher for my brother at the time, but I found a local teacher. Her name is Tal Coleman. She's a disciple of Hariji, Pandit Hariprasad Chaurasia. And so I went to her a couple of times a month and got my basic training. So that was really the punch I had to get to really investigate into this music. Some later time, Tal had to stop teaching, so I had to go on to do my own research. So then, but with that time, I really dwelled deep into listening, like really immersing myself and sort of making this internalization process, which I think is, I would think the best practice and the best gift which I've gotten from this music, because this has really shaped my interpretation and how my expression has been. So from that point on I just had to find whichever teacher was available when they were in Oslo, or if they were close to Oslo and that sort of thing. So, and also finding musicians around who are willing to play with you. Because when you're a beginner, you're not that good, but so you're very dependent on the musicians around you.
You need to find your footing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there was this tabla player who I met. His name is Tarak Dutta, which gave me like the entryway to playing with the tabla player, and except for my brother, because at some point he lost a little motivation. But I kept on going. So I met Tarak Dutta's Guruji. Eventually he became my Guruji, Pandit Nabankur Bhattacharya. So I learned tabla from him, and that sort of everything spiraled after that. So which it gave me a lot of insight to the music, and a great start, I would say.
So how, if I could just, you said you were playing tabla also.
Yeah.
And then just transition to flute.
So
how is it that that it sticks to you, the flute?
So really, I don't know why. It's kind of cliche to say it, but it's like I didn't pick the flute. The flute picked me. So I don't know why, really.
Yeah.
But it happened.
Yeah.
So I just accepted it.
It was just meant to happen.
Who knows,
Yeah.
It's.
But we're not giving any credit to Amazon.
That's fair. It was a cheap one anyway. Yeah. But yeah, so that really gave me a good pathway down to this art form and expression.
It's good that you also had the tenacity to carry on, and you're here.
Yeah, thanks to all the fellow musicians who are around me and all the connections that we have been able to do.
Yeah, it's so important to keep the motivation going and practice and everything. You really need to find that inner passion,
Dedication,
which can be very tough at times. And it's really a help to have people around that play music, and it brings you forward a lot. So that's really.
But you've also been lucky that you started at an early age, and then you just carried on and found the right people who gave you enough motivation, I think.
Yes. So you can say I had a head start maybe.
Yeah.
So in that way I was lucky.
Yeah, a little ahead in the game.
Yes.
Yeah. Moa,
Yeah, no. now I don't know where to start. What is important? The musical journey and the
the highlights.
Highlights. Yes, as I said before, I played the classical piano, Western classical piano, and but then it was when I was like 20 something. It was still there was something I lacked in the Western classical piano. As I was talking, I think what I was talking about before. This the improvisational quality and this way of just communicating through the music, because the Western classical music is very fixed. But I tried to play some jazz, but I didn't really like the tone language, the sound. So, and then I just went traveling in India because of curiosity and to see the world, and then and also to explore the music. And I started learning tabla. And I think that was really important to me, because then my first tabla teacher in Varanasi is Sudip Bhattacharya. He became really like family eventually. And also I met my husband, who was to be my husband, and he played sitar and I played tabla. And we were many friends who used to meet in Varanasi and play together. And so I think Sudip, that my teacher, that he really let us in and taught us so much, and so yeah, he was the one who really opened the door to the music for all of us, this group of friends that were trying to learn. And then yeah, exactly like both of you said, if I wouldn't have had these people around me playing music and this environment of people doing Indian music, then I would never have continued. So that's the most important thing, to have people that you like and to play together.
To have a congenial environment so you can also learn. And
yes, and co-musicians that and play together. Yeah. That's absolutely the most important thing. But then after like 10 years or more of playing tabla and playing concerts also a lot in Sweden and Europe, then I had this, suddenly I got a problem in my right hand. So it was like suddenly some fast things I suddenly couldn't do, and I didn't understand why. And then if you're a musician,
that's a setback.
And if something doesn't work, what you do then is you practice that more. So I did, of course, but it got worse. So eventually, and I was very confused, and of course it was, it's a horrible thing for a musician. But eventually I got the diagnosis musician's dystonia. So that is actually a nerve-related, practice-related syndrome that musicians can get. So that makes that you suddenly the muscles don't obey.
Okay.
So of course that was a great crisis, of course, because I was living as a musician. And I went to so many different doctors and tried to recover, but it didn't work. So actually, because at that time, then I was then I had a lot of like energy, and I couldn't practice. I couldn't play concerts, so I didn't know what to do with the energy I used to put in the music. So actually, that's when I started to organize events, and that is when this Stockholm Sangit we had started already, but it was really small at that time. But then
you suddenly had the energy to
yes, I had to do something. I couldn't play music, so then I started to work with that and applying for money, and it started growing. So then I got that. into that line for a couple of years. I was more organizing. I was playing some drums also with different Balkan music, but I was more and more into organizing. So and then the Stockholm Sangit started to grow because of that. But all the time I was also searching for a way to get back into music. Yeah. And then I found the Santoor. I saw some concerts and I started thinking about the Santoor, because also the Santoor is kind of a synthesis between the tabla and the piano. Yeah. Because Santoor is actually like a piano, only you hold the sticks instead of pressing a key that is connected to a stick that hits the string. So for me, the Santoor, when I found that, it was like it could marry both sides, my piano background and the tabla, and so then I started to learn it, and after some years I got the opportunity to start learning from Pandit Bhajan Supuri. I saw a concert with him also. That was a very important moment, because at Varanasi at the Ghat I saw this concert with him, and I was just mind blown because it was so powerful and so different from everything else I had seen. So then I know I want to learn from him, and then after some time, thanks to some friends, I managed to start. So
it's very inspiring to hear that despite the setback with your hand, you were looking for something. That also shows how passionate you are about music. So it's really inspiring to hear. Now I'd just like some specific questions. So Gabriel, first one for you. Tabla is both about rhythm and mathematical calculations, as I understand. So how do you adopt your playing to support and enhance the melodic instruments like santoor and flute together?
Okay, so you have to think about dynamics. I feel is very important when you meet new artists. So if you play too loud, they can get very disturbed. Yeah. And then you think about, like, as I said earlier, get the experience with the artist. You slowly understand what they want, and then the compositions they play, you should see how is the structure, and then you do your calculations or whatever to when you get your solos, and try to fit something nice into that.
And then all of that
and fail also a lot.
Most important part.
Yeah. You learn with failures. So
absolutely.
That's and then over to you, Moa. The Santoor's cascading sound is unique in Hindustani music, almost like waterfall. How do you maintain the clarity in such a resonant instrument?
Yeah, it's a very good question, because the sound of the Santoor is so long. So, but one thing is, it is in every raga there is already like a harmony inside the raga. So that is, so if you play inside the raga, still the resonance will be in harmony, kind of, or it will be in that raga. But it's different if you play Western music, for example. When you change chords, then it can sound really bad, because then the sustaining notes will clash with each other. So that's why this type of Santoor, it goes really, it's really made to play modal music, ragas or other type of music that has like one bass note, not changing bass notes.
So you have like a framework, you could say, within the raga that gives you the space to do that.
And you have the drone. Change the bass. But apart from that, also personally, I like work with phrases and emptiness between the phrases, also to not
continuously. Yeah.
be so many notes.
Yeah.
So then it's
I think it also ties up a little bit to what you said earlier, that giving the space and still taking it away sometimes. So I think that perhaps also works.
it's a challenge to try to find ways not to just the mess.
Yeah. Then Patrick, over to you. The Bansuri has such a delicate yet powerful voice. What are the biggest challenges in expressing emotion through a wind instrument like this?
So it all comes from the breath, really. So deep down, or our fundamental practice is to have control over our breath. And for especially beginners, to blow into a flute is quite difficult because you have to start from zero and try to find the hole, for the flute. But once you then get sound of the flute, then what you do, right? Then to create the music and to make you expressive, I would say the most important thing is dynamics, meaning volume control. So in my example, it would be, for example, when you breathe into a note or breathe into the flute, you produce a note, but how that note comes out depends on your breath. So we take a lot of practice just for keeping control of our breath and to come in touch with our breath. So to really create I would say a fuller expression, this is necessary. Simply because if a beginner starts to play, then one thing, for example, in flute, when we change octaves, we have to blow a little bit harder. But this when blowing harder, this also increases the volume.
Yeah.
So when you go up in pitch, you have to maintain the volume control so that you're not like really squeaking. Yeah. And the same goes for the low notes. When you go low, it's harder to produce them.
Yeah.
So you have to actually really
Go deep.
go deep in your lungs. And this practice is necessary for flute players, especially if you go for the bass flutes. And this depth doesn't come from ordinary breathing. So you have to do exercises and long notes and so lots of things you must do.
So now I hear that all of you have so many years of experience in your baggage. That normally in such a long journey, there is always a point where you feel like, now I'm not getting anywhere, and you sort of start losing hope that, am I going to do something different? Am I going to do something new? Has any one of you come across that point where you said that I can't see my way ahead? What's going to happen now? And then if that has happened, how did you get yourself back on your feet, and what was it that kept you going? So if I could have you more comment on that.
The most important point like that was, of course, what I told you when my hand stopped working. So of course then it was just like hitting a wall with your head first. So and I told you I didn't manage to get back into tabla, but other things came. So it can be like that. So I thought that the only thing I wanted was to be able to play tabla again. But now, of course, I would like, it would be nice. But anyway, if it hadn't happened, Stockholm Sangit hadn't grown, and I hadn't got into this creating big projects. That is also kind of actually doing projects. It's also kind of
fulfilling experience.
It's like you're working with people instead of notes. Like
Yeah.
Suddenly you imagine, okay, if I get Patrick and then this guy, and okay, I make them meet, and then this organizer, and then it's like creating a piece of music.
Yeah.
Actually, like composing
Yeah.
or to solve problems. So for me, actually, that is also kind of creative, really artistic work. Yeah. So I developed that, and then the Santoor.
So you saw the silver lining in the cloud that, okay, if not tabla, then I'll still do something.
Life
Yeah.
is happening. You
Yeah.
cannot, you
Yeah.
can't govern anything.
Yeah.
You can just try to manage. What happens.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you really, if you want to do something, maybe you will not be able to do it exactly that way you want to do it.
Yes.
But maybe in a different way.
Yes. Yes. That's great that you say that, because flexibility, I think, is also another important virtue in life to have. What about you, Gabriel? Did you?
Yeah, it's a bit of the same, like being in a country without a lot of Indian classical.
No?
It's it's in itself is a big blockage, and you have to just kind of has to come from yourself.
Yeah.
The motivation.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then luckily I got some opportunity to meet some new people, and somehow, I don't know exactly, but continued with tabla because I had some breaks, just completely not playing.
Okay.
So yeah, but that, like, trying to do what you can to find people, because in the end that's the most important thing, that you're playing with people. If you're just playing with playing in your room all the time, then
True.
Yeah. Yeah, to that, it was something we spoke a little bit about yesterday. That this, when you're starting off learning, you'll see the big changes right away. So the learning curve is, you'll see but for the more you could say advanced you become, it will sort of gradually
Become like a plateau where
exactly.
you feel like there's nothing way.
And this is something you really have to be aware of. That, okay, you could say that, okay, now I don't see any change, so I've mastered this, which is kind of a fallacy, or So it's to be able to have this openness to learn something new, and this is also where meeting different artists, how this helps to broaden your perspective on things, because if you sit alone at home and you have, for example, I have a tabla machine who just go da din din da da din din da da din din da da din din da, then what does this inspire me to play? So when he plays his teka, which he adjusts every time, like maybe not every teka is the same, then it fills with new inspiration, and that sort of, when you're seeing that plateau, then it's there's another part to it, and that's the big joy of meeting new musicians, and be a little aware of your biases.
Ready to look to the sides, perhaps, and see if there's something different to explore.
Yeah, to try, and also, like, if there's a musical style that you are maybe a little critical about, then maybe, like, be a little self-conscious and, like, maybe try to explore it. See if there's anything there which you might enjoy. So even if it's something very strange or something, for example, I've heard in Norway, like, metal music is quite popular, or it's very typical, and to hear sitar with metal music for many people could be very odd and very weird combination, but people will make it work, and that is very interesting point of view. And I would say also to have this sort of perspective is a great strength for a musician.
So I think we're quite close to the end. What is one piece of advice that you would have for the younger generation?
For music,
Yes, the younger artists.
I would say find people that you like. Yeah, what we have been talking about, saying all the time. Find people that you like to play with, and stick to them, because they are treasures worth more than everything else. If you have people that you like to play with, and just don't let them go.
Don't let them go.
Yes.
Nurture them.
Yeah.
Yes, take
Help-
care of them. Yes,
Help them grow.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also play lots of concerts, even small concerts, strange concerts. Actually, we played a lot of concerts in restaurants. So many, and it was people didn't listen. They were eating, drinking, and we had to change clothes in the onion locker. So
Wow.
it was like potatoes everywhere, and but
Cramped up places.
but we learned so much from playing because we played so much concerts, because even though people were not really listening, it was a concert situation. So
But it also makes you humble, because then you realize that, suddenly from a very big setup where you have all the luxuries of having a dressing room and, people dressing you up with the makeup and stuff, that you suddenly on your own, and, you're running the show
yes.
all by yourself. So
Yeah. So you get this because you have to play many, as you were talking about also. Playing concerts is a training to be in the concert situation, and so you have to play many times to get used to get used to using the tools that you have practiced. When you practice, you create a lot of tools I can use, but then you have to practice to use them also, and that you do on stage. So I would say yes, find good mates and play a lot of concerts, any kind.
super. So
I can add to one
Yeah,
last one.
sure.
It's to all of those who are both musicians and passionate about the music, and especially the young ones. I would say to musicians is to listen to a lot of music. Not necessarily like you have to sit there and actively listen, because that can be tough for people. But to have it in
the background.
in the background, or when you're out walking, put it on for your headphones or something on the bus, just have it there, because that will, as I mentioned earlier about like internalizing the music, because if you're a musician and you don't have any, what you could say, as you mentioned, toolbox, or like you have this set of tools, where are you gonna get the tools from? So you have to get the inspiration. So then that has been, I would say, the greatest teacher for me has been recordings of maestros from all ages.
And I have to add also, if you have a good teacher, that's the treasure. So, like if you have found a good teacher, stick with that teacher and continue, even though life is different and maybe you have to study, you have to do different things, but don't leave. Keep seeing that teacher at least as often as you can, because that's the best gift you can get.
Great. Any last thoughts from your end? Gabriel?
I think I'm on the same page. Yeah.
That's nice. Good. So I would like to say a big thank you once again for sharing
Thank
your
you.
music, your thoughts, and a glimpse into your artistic life and world. And your dedication reminds us that Indian classical music is not just an art form, but a living tradition. So we hope that this conversation deepens our listeners' appreciation for what they have heard today and inspires many to explore this beautiful journey. Thank you very much. Thank you for being a part of our.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.